Here for another episode of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants, from the Giants podcast studio, brought to you by Hackensack, Brittany Hell, keep getting better. From The Athletic, host of the Scoop City podcast, the one and only Dianna Russini. Dianna, what's going on?
What's going on? Are you keeping up with all this news? It's flying left and right. On my calendar, I literally wrote, we have like a calendar in the kitchen, like we're living in 1982. Wednesday free, Thursday free, Friday free, meaning just like I don't have to be anywhere specifically. I can just kind of hang. Guess what? That's not happening.
Yes, you have to be on your phone. That's where you have to be as news kind of goes fast and furious here. And that's why we have you on, Dianna. So let's start here. Briefly, who are the names that you've heard most associated with this Giants head coaching search this early in the process?
Yeah, it has been such an interesting cycle because we headed into this week, we'll call it this week of a lot of firings, thinking that the lead candidate out of the gate would be maybe perhaps a defensive coordinator, right? It would be the Jeff Hafleys of the world, Lou Anarumo. And I still think those are going to be candidates that are going to interview with the New York Giants. I don't think that anyone believed that Kevin Stefanski was really going to get fired. There was definitely some rumblings about it, but once that became clear, he became a top candidate for the New York Giants. And now with John Harbaugh out from the Baltimore Ravens, those two are your sort of golden gooses of this group. They are the Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabels of this cycle.
How important, Dianna, to the Giants is maybe trying to limit their risk profile a little bit with this hire, given how the last couple have gone, where you can find someone that is actually you've seen do this job, which is such a different job than just being a coordinator?
Yeah, I've never gotten the sense that New York was in the market of taking some big swing on a coach with potential. It's a good example, but a great example of taking a swing and it working out, what the Rams did with Sean McVay years ago, right? He's an offensive coordinator in Washington for just a few years and no one really knows him. And now he, of course, has turned out to be a superstar. But that's so rare. It's so rare. It is so hard to find the right guy who's never done it before. And as you know so well, taking a first-time head coaching job in this market and with the situation that they have right now, which is a really good roster and a young quarterback that needs development still, I don't believe that they're going to be leaning towards someone with very little experience. This is going to a job. This is going to a big boy who's been there before, who knows how to navigate a facility, who understands how to put together a coaching staff, who knows how to have accountability right out of the gate. And accountability is the word I've been hearing when it relates to the Giants. And I know, I think most Giants fans think the Tom Coughlin era and they think fondly of it. And of course, because it came with championships, but it came with accountability. And I think that's always the space this Giants front office wants to go back to.
I will hit some of the individual candidates in a second, but you talked about the quality of the jobs that are available right now. And I'll push the Ravens aside because they have Lamar Jackson, and clearly when Lamar Jackson is there, that's going to be the number one coaching opportunity for everybody. From the rest of the jobs, do you consider the Giants the most attractive, one of the most attractive? Is it them, the Falcons? How do you kind of see those jobs lining up?
Yeah, I've been asking candidates that of like, where do the Giants are at the top with, if they're not one, they're two. And you bring up the Falcons and the Falcons roster is fantastic, but they're figuring out their quarterback situation just as much. I think the edge that the New York Giants always have, especially when especially during this time of year, it's just how reputable ownership is. And that is such a big part of the decision-making, especially for the coaches that have the options. Anytime you talk to a coach that was fired, and they're trying to get back in, they will always say the same thing, which is, I didn't understand the importance of a good owner. And yes, it's obvious you need a quarterback. You do. You can't win in this league without a good quarterback. But you need that support behind the scenes, and you need them to have your back. And that is something the Giants owner has done so well over the years of just getting the backs of the football people. And so I think that is probably the key factor in what's making this such a good job. And then the second part of it is the talent on this roster has been pointed out to me many of times. In fact, even during the year, when I talk to teams facing the Giants and we'd kind of talk it out, and sometimes I'd be a little flippant about it because I didn't think the Giants were that good. I would always get scolded about, no. They may not be well coached, but they've got talent. They're really good. And if this happens to be the game they find it, we're in trouble. So having someone come in here and find that is going to be crucial.
And you mentioned the quarterback. My sense, and I sensed this last year too during the draft process, Jaxson Dart is like a coach's quarterback. Just his personality, the way he plays, Dianna, I feel like he has the respect of a lot of the coaches out there, which makes him and the job even more attractive to some of the candidates out there.
Yes, that is 1,000% a reason why people want to come to New York. Brian Daboll did a good job in some regard, right? It wasn't all bad. And Daboll has a lot of connections in football because he spends so much time. So I've actually spoken to some coaches interested in the Giants job who've had conversations with Daboll. And they've gotten rave reviews about this Giants job, specifically about Jaxson. It's like ownership in Jaxson again, or things that he had shared with them. And, I guess you could call it private conversations, but things are, everyone's collecting information. They want to know what they're walking into here because nobody knows unless you do it. So I think the fact that they got that right and they believe in Jaxson, I think this is going to help the Giants find the right guy.
Huddle up, get in here. If you're lined up here, you gotta go over the middle with it to score.
Right. How do we make that happen?
I don't know, but Citizens does.
Make sense of your money with Citizens, official bank of Eli Manning.
All right. For those of you that have been to the Museum of Natural History, and I apologize, but I think this is a good analogy.
Okay.
You go to the room where you have the giant whale hanging from the ceiling. You have all the little exhibits. You get the giant whale. That's John Harbaugh. He's the giant whale, and he's the center of this whole thing now. And I guess my question for you is, how quickly do you think he's going to want to move here? Is he going to purposely wait to see if maybe other jobs shake loose after a couple rounds of playoffs? I'm sure teams would like to move fast with him, even though the rules now with interviews make that difficult with when you can do in-person interviews and stuff like that.
You're forgetting one other factor.
Yes.
There could be coaches currently in place of teams that could get fired after this weekend of games.
Right.
So you have that because then that changes the pool. Because then let's just, for this example, this is not me reporting, but let's just say the Packers lose to the Bears and Matt LaFleur gets fired. He's now in the cycle, and that's a hot name. People love Matt LaFleur, and he is very well regarded around football. He would have a job, and I would think the New York Giants would call him immediately as well. So there's a lot of things in play, and just talking to people close to John Harbaugh about their timing. Look, they were not expecting this. This Monday night, I was being told by everybody that the vibes in Baltimore, we'll call it, the facility was, we're all coming back. Everyone was very calm. Guard was down. Tuesday comes, more of that. It was like, okay, so much so I kind of stopped working the story because I was moving on to things that were actually happening. And then when we found out that Bisciotti and Harbaugh were going to sit and talk, we all just figured it was just going to be like all right, let's run it back. Let's make some changes, maybe new coordinator, maybe whatever they want to do. And there was no conversation about it. It was, we're moving on. So I think his side was really stunned. And so now they're getting back in this. They haven't done this in 18 years. The Baltimore Ravens haven't done this in 18 years. So I think they're trying to navigate this, figure out who the players are, who do they need to know. And obviously he's the hot candidate, so everyone's calling, and it's impossible to get in touch with this camp right now. Not because they don't want to talk to people, they're so busy dealing with everyone that's interested. And teams, I can tell you, almost every single team that has an opening has called, and teams that have current head coaches have called as well. So a lot is going to happen in the next 24 to 72 hours, and then even just next week, this is all going to play out. So buckle up.
So I imagine then, I'll ask this kind of broadly then, I would imagine then you'd be surprised if we have any coaching hires before the divisional playoff round. Do you think we might get something next week?
Yes. I don't think we're going to see a hire until next week. Not because I think that the New York Giants are waiting on Not because I think the New York Giants are waiting on a Matt LaFleur thing. I just think it's the other side of it. It's the Stefanskis and the Harbaugh trying to sort out what they want to do. And sometimes coaches need some time to sort it out, right? They have got families and Stefanski is a great example. Like, he's a Philly guy. His wife went to Villanova. They've got tons of connections to North Jersey, to Jersey in general. So from what I understand, they would be comfortable moving to New Jersey. Like, I don't think that would, sometimes that's a hard sell. New Jersey to them is good, right? Raheem Morris is meeting with the New York Giants. He's got New York connections himself with his family. He's comfortable living here. But the school situation, where you're going to transfer your kids, like, all these things matter. I know people just think it's like, oh, well, they got the quarterback. No, there's things. So I would lean more towards, us not knowing who the New York Giants next head coach is going to be until next week.
Yeah, and then maybe, frankly, even later than that, depending on how all this stuff goes with the coaching search. I'm with you. Stefanski, Paul Schwartz had an interesting story talking about how if he goes to a team, maybe he doesn't have to be the play caller, which I think might surprise people given how highly respected he is as a play caller. Is he, you think, open to either scenario, going in being a CEO and hiring guys, or going in and being a play caller?
I get the sense from Stefanski that he likes to call plays. He likes to be all that's his nature. That's where he comes from. That's what he does. That's what he does well. I've covered him tons in Cleveland and been around him a lot and been there for training camps. And look, he runs a tight ship. If they're looking for accountability, I understand why they called him, not just because he's a good offensive play caller. He has a very even-keeled way about him, and it's such a strength. And sometimes I've heard people be like, oh, I just wish he showed more emotion on the side. No. Because you want that emotional IQ to be high, or EQ to be high, right? Because we've seen the other side doesn't work. And you're not going to have a lot of drama with Kevin Stefanski. He knows how to keep things in the building and how to manage it and manage the best players on the team, because that's a big factor in this. How do you manage the stars? That tells you a lot about the grip a head coach has. Are you going to coach those guys differently, or are you going to treat them just like everybody else? And from everything I gather, Stefanski's very even with what he does with people. So I think the play calling thing, I'd be surprised if he doesn't want to do it.
Let me jump back to Harbaugh very quickly. Is this almost a situation where he's interviewing the teams that bring him in as much as they're interviewing him? And is he going to have like, all right, well, this has to be my OC, this has to be my DC, maybe other demands as well? Is that kind of, you think, how this is going to play out?
Yeah, Sean Payton, when he was going through his cycle, I remember hearing from teams that if you just visually looked in the meeting, it looked like Sean was running it, right? So because when you have, it's unbelievable when you have options and it's a great life lesson, right? Like when you have choices, it changes the energy of the room.
Yeah.
So I 1000% John Harbaugh to be sitting there going, this is what I want. And we'll learn that soon, by the way. This is what I'm looking for. Once he starts meeting with these teams, it'll get out that, he wants either roster control or whatever it is that he wants. I think it's a little bit of stay tuned for right now as it's all getting sorted out.
If you want to know how to manage 2 minutes of crunch time football, I'm your man. But if you're wondering about a long-term financial plan, you should talk to Citizens. Hey, I can also talk lawn care.
I'd like to learn about a mowing routine.
Yes, I knew I could help.
Make sense of your money with Citizens.
All right, we're joined by Dianna Russini. A couple more for her very quickly as we roll through some of these potential coaching candidates. Of the coordinators, Dianna, that have not, and maybe one or two have held the job before, who are the hot names you're hearing? The Jesse Minters, the Chris Schulas, the Jeff Hafleys, the Clint Kubiaks. Which one of these guys, once they're available to interview, a lot of them aren't even available to interview yet, right, are going to be the most highly sought after and thought most highly of around the league? Okay,
so you've got the guys out in Los Angeles with Sean McVay, right? You have the Michael LaFleurs. The Kubiak name runs wild. And I've heard that as great as Clint Kubiak is in Seattle, Clay Kubiak is super talented, and he's somebody that's going to get an opportunity. Grant Udinski, he's down in Jacksonville. He was in Minnesota before he took the so he's technically the OC, but he doesn't call plays in Jacksonville. He worked under Kevin O'Connell. He interviewed for the New England Patriots job last year, and from what I understand, almost got it.
Wow.
So he has a lot of potential. I'd be interested to see if Liam Cohen lets him go, right? Because that's another thing in this is who's going to be allowed out. For right now, Bobby Slowick is a name I think is going to come back, and Cliff Kingsbury is going to be in this mix. Again, obviously the Commanders just recently moving on from him, but I think if Cliff is going to have a shot anywhere, it would make sense to probably land in Baltimore.
How about the defensive guys? The Vance Josephs, the Chris Shulas, the Jeff Halfleys, the
all those
Jesse
guys.
Minters.
Well, first of all, that crop, their lives were just shook with the Stefanski Harbaugh, because those were like, if we did this show a week ago, we'd be breaking down like Jeff Halfley's family tree right now, because I expect him to be one of the top candidates, right? And Tennessee's in this too, by the way. We haven't mentioned them, and because they're not a bigger market type place, but the thing that Tennessee has as well is the quarterback, and they have the community. Like I can't tell you how many coaches want to know more about Tennessee because they want to live there. Everyone wants to live in Nashville. Yeah, forget Nashville. Come to Jersey. But with that being said, the defensive coordinators that are on their way up. So in Denver, it's funny. Some teams don't like to put names out because they don't want to lose their guys.
Right.
But their secondary coach, Jim Leonard, is unbelievable. Patrick Surtain talks to me about him when I see him in person more than he talks about his own head coach, because he's been or his coordinator, and Vance Joseph is very good. He is someone to watch. Also, by the way, I didn't want to skip over it. Brian Flores is another defensive coordinator that we got to watch in this mix. And when I say for a defensive coordinator position, I don't think a lot of people realize his contract with Minnesota is up. So he is going to have a choice of where he wants to go. Most people are like, well, why would he make a lateral move? Okay, you can make that argument. Maybe you don't want to move. But if one team is going to pay, if the Dallas Cowboys are going to pay him significantly more money, he's going to be willing to take that. So I think those are some of the names that you can watch.
Yeah, it sounds like the Cowboys are big game hunting when it comes to their defensive coordinator. Two more questions, Dianna. You have I'll throw this into the end. I don't mean to be disrespectful. The older group of coaches, the Steve Spagnuolos, the Lou Anarumos, the Mike McCarthys that are kind of, pushing 60, but teams might be interested. What are you hearing about that kind of group?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a great conversation with a player just about an hour ago about, and he's been in the league a while, and he's very accomplished. And he was saying that the guys in the locker room the other day were having this exact conversation of what you just asked me, not specific to those guys, but the older regime of coaches. Is that going to be out of style because we're seeing so many former player coaches have success, and so many organizations bring in former players to be part of the organization as just a way to connect better and communicate and understand what the players are going through. So with that in mind, the coaches you just named are very accomplished, and I think almost everyone you named is a Super Bowl champ, right? Yeah. And by the way, we still don't know what Mike Tomlin's doing. I still think he's going to probably lean towards TV. We don't know officially, though. We got to wait. But let's just throw his name in there too, for example. Look, I think a lot of owners are older themselves, and they've seen these type of coaches have success the way they like to do it and what they're comfortable seeing. The newer generation of doing things these way, I think it takes a certain type of owner to want that. And I don't think the ones that have the openings really fit that. I think the old school way is still able to have success. I don't think it's that, much of a fad at this point. But I do think that's going to change. I'm in agreement with that player I spoke to. Like, I do think we're going to start seeing more younger type head coaches and general managers even. And even what you're seeing Atlanta do with this president of football, right? Like, because it's almost like a light version of what the Jacksonville Jags do with Tony Baselli, right? Like he's got a lot of power down there, but he's just a former player, but it works. And he's kind of babysitting's disrespectful to what Liam and James Gladstone are doing, but they're younger guys with less experience, right? And Baselli's there to be like, this is how we do it here. And it makes sense. So I think we're going to be moving towards that.
Dianna, tell the folks where they can find all your great content.
You can find all of my writing over at theathletic.com or on the New York Times homepage over on the sports section, and you'll see all my intel information. And then, of course, you can listen to my Scoop City podcast every week on Tuesday and Thursday.
Dianna Russini, Jersey girl. We appreciate it, Dianna. Your knowledge is tremendous, and we thank you so much for joining us. We've been trying to do this for like a couple of years, and happy we finally got to get it done.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. You're like, You're one of my favorite people. I've listened to your show many times.
Oh, thank you.
I of info at all times and intel, and you do such a good job. So I'm honored to be on this. Thank you. And we'll do it again when we got some more juicy stuff coming up.
That's the Giants Soda Podcast. Dianna Russini, brought to you by Citizens, official bank of the Giants. We'll see you next time, everybody.